pick the couple things that are really going to move the needle.
Right.
For you, for your constituents, whoever they may be, and then just triple down on it and learn from it. There is so much data out there now that can show you what is effective and ineffective communication. Learn from it.
Right.
Like, just absorb as much as you can, and if you don't have the data, figure out how to get it.
Nada, thank you so much for joining us. Look forward to our conversation today about leadership and just about your life and your connection to Florida State and Seminole Boosters. So first of all, just tell me a little bit about your background, where you're from, where you grew up.
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me. Anything Seminole, I'm all in for it. So I was born in Toronto, Canada, and I'm one of 4 kids. My passports included the former Yugoslavia and Canada. So
wow.
I grew up doing sports across both countries, which was really cool experience. And I'm the oldest of 4, highly competitive house, and that has translated into pretty much everything I do.
Yeah, it's funny you say that you're the oldest of 4, because knowing you, I can understand that. Ultra competitive, I agree with.
Yeah.
So tell me, how did you get to Florida State from being born in Toronto, obviously being all across Europe? How did you get to Florida State?
So I was a swimmer. I did actually 6 sports throughout high school, but swimming was sort of the one that stood out. Times are times, and coaches get to know you through that. And I was lucky enough to have an American coach who said you should consider the U.S. And growing up in Toronto, my consideration set was a pretty simple one.
Right.
I wanted to be warm.
Yeah,
And I was lucky enough to have Florida State University reach out as one of the schools that was recruiting me, and took a trip down here back in spring of 1990.
Right.
And there were palm trees and cute boys and an outdoor 50-meter pool. And they said, we're happy to have you on scholarship. So it was a pretty easy decision, I have to say.
So when you and I've talked before, I think you said that the pool was in the middle of campus, pretty much where the student center or student union is now.
Yeah.
A little bit different setting than it is today. But what's some memories from you when you were here as a student swimming? Because, the community of swimmers, even today, you're probably really close-knit with that group.
Yeah, the swimmers I got to know here during my time have become lifelong friends. They are my best friends, and they span generations now, and I've gotten to know
That's
those
awesome.
who were there before me and those who have come since. In fact, just ran into one of our NCAA All-Americans on a plane the other day, and he's a young Frenchman. And it's just a very tight-knit community. It means everything. You spend an inordinate amount of time inhaling chlorine. We're all chlorinated. That's what we have in common.
Right.
And we lived together. We ate together. We went on the road together. Seminole Boosters has certainly upgraded the experience since my years, but we would take van trips and bus trips all over the country, and that was an amazing, amazing experience.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, you're right. I mean, a lot has changed. So after you finished Florida State, finished swimming, then what? Tell us about your career along the way.
Yeah, well, ironically, the first place I ever worked, and we'll put work in loose quotations, was Seminole Boosters. I was trying to get experience, as any young student would. Certainly a foreign student athlete at the time, there were limitations around what you could do and not do and where you could work and not work. And I was just training 365 every year. So Charlie Barnes and Andy were kind enough to say, you can come in and open envelopes, which had cash in them. And I thought that was a really interesting level of trust that they put in a 21 or 22-year-old at the time.
Right.
But I learned, certainly around the dedication that alumni had to the school and its athletic programs. And basically what I really did was drive them around campus and make sure they didn't get boots on their cars. So that I think things have maybe changed with the expansion of campus since. But from there, worked at a place called the Florida Sports Foundation, met the gentleman who led that organization when I was in my master's class. So I was doing master's my senior year at FSU and sort of shoved my way into another internship, which became a job. I ended up working with the Olympic Committee in Atlanta for a couple of years. They had some ties to the state of Florida. And it was all pretty sequential. Met a boy. He's been my husband now for 27 years. So when Gary
That's awesome.
relocated to Dallas with a little company called Host Communications, which at the time was the Seminole Sports Network, we
Right.
moved to Dallas, and I joined a little startup called AudioNet. At the time, it became broadcast.com, but we were the first company to stream anything live on the internet, and this was back in the mid 90s.
Right.
I was explaining to my parents that the electrical engineering degree I started with, that switched to business, would eventually become useful, and
Right.
I was hooking up satellites and phone couplers and anything else so that people
Wow.
could enjoy sports around the world. So we had an epic ride, had an IPO, which was one of those 1.0.com IPOs. We sold to Yahoo. I was out in the Bay Area for a bunch of years, just an amazing ride through that, and worked for Nokia, which was a massive company, and did another startup in the sports tech space, and it just one thing led to another. And then the last dozen years I've been doing executive search, which is a very different type of industry than what I did before. But FSU set me up for that, and there's been a thread throughout.
It sounds like, as I've gotten to know you, serial entrepreneur would come to mind. But I would say more than anything, you're just a curious person that doesn't like inefficiencies. So from a leadership standpoint, throughout all of that, because obviously, as you just went over it, it seems simple today. But in the middle of that, from a patient standpoint and some other things, what did you learn as you were with a startup and then doing another one? Just talk through that.
Yeah, I think you don't realize you're a curious person until you're sort of out in it and you realize not everyone maybe is, and you gravitate to those who are. It's also funny you say, I don't like inefficiency. If you ask my team to this day what drives me crazy, I was just having a conversation around why are four of us on the phone for this conversation? This could have happened in an email. We just wasted, 2 hours of collective time, and they're looking at me like I'm nuts, but I really value optimizing people's time and outcomes, whether it's for our clients or for ourselves or for your team. I think all of that matters. Patience, I'm not sure I've ever really learned, to be quite honest. Everyone gets sort of critical feedback along the way, and I've had more than my share of it. But I think the idea of can you be a little more patient? Can you bring others along? You're supposed to tell people something 6 times before it sticks, and that just drives me bananas. I want to retain it the first time. If you weren't paying attention, like, that's irritating enough. If you weren't retaining, like, figure out your way of learning. I don't care what it is, but let's move on. And I want people to understand it and absorb it, but it shouldn't be like a shock that we've had a conversation a second time, but it is. So my patience is still not a virtue, I would say.
I totally understand that. But I would say that most successful people, patience is in context. So, I mean, from being a driven person, a competitive person, what would you say, what are the top 3 qualities that you think are the most important? I think you just touched on a couple of them there, but what for you, what do you look for in people?
Yeah. So, 3 colleagues and I peeled out and started a new executive search firm about 2 years ago now. We were just named the 25th largest firm in the world, and we are not but 2 years old, which is a pretty interesting accomplishment when you still feel like a toddler. So can't wait to be a teenager in that universe. And when we put together the ethos of our company, really what are the values, we called it a new idea, and we spelled idea with 2 Ds, but we talked about being inspirational. We talked about being empowering. We talked about being driven, being direct, and being agile. I didn't spell idea correctly there, but all of the words are in the acronym.
Makes sense.
But I think the directness is something that if you talk to people who know me, they will hear that, and it's consistent. It's not that I'm direct with one person and indirect with someone else. You want to be respectful in your way of communicating, of course, but I think people value that and appreciate that. I've certainly learned from it when I've had others who have taken that approach with me, but I value people who are driven. It's not by chance that a number of the people that I've hired throughout my career are former athletes. And I sort of gravitate not just to Seminole boosters for that reason, but the community and the culture around that group, it's a competitive group, and they
Right.
want to win, and they try to apply it, whether it's in a pool, on a track, on a field, or in life. And I think the discipline that people put in
Right.
to usually excel at whatever they do are things that I care about.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And I think, the larger university, I know you've been involved with the business school and some other parts of Florida State, and obviously now with your search business success, congratulations.
Thank you.
I did see that the other day. I think the connections, and I heard somebody this past weekend tell me that why you should join Seminole Boosters as an example is that the community of support. It's not just the purpose, but it's also the community you're involved
Yep.
in. And I think for you at large with Florida State University, how much has Florida State and the universe of the community around, whether it's boosters or the university, impacted you?
Yeah. The connections I made here at FSU were real. And a lot of that came through my teammates and through my coaches and the broader athletic department. I wanted to understand who was giving me a paycheck, so I could eat.
Right.
Why was I getting books?
Right.
And the sort of tutoring and academic support that was afforded that just is an unbelievable advantage that any student would love to have. So all of these things, I think were important. And as I've had the chance to live a bunch of places around the world, one of the first things I tend to do is seek out who from FSU is either in my industry or in my geography or in my backyard, because very quickly you can just connect with somebody around that. And I've had the pleasure to do work with a lot of Seminoles and beyond, and continue to mentor folks who are in school to this day. So there's just an ease of understanding of experiences, and certainly they've evolved a little bit since I was in school, but we've tried to stay connected in a lot of different ways there, and it is a community that looks out for each other.
Right.
And it's not just athletes, but those who support athletics, who support the university, who graduated here. You see somebody walking through an airport, and you can be in Amsterdam, and you say "Go Noles," and they
Universal
completely
language.
like, you're looking at me, I got you.
That's right. That's awesome. Well, it's funny in this role with Seminole Boosters, I love what I do. The thing I probably love the most is connecting with people and learning something. You and I have talked about this a little bit before, but I've learned from you. I've learned from other people. Every time I'm around successful people, I try to take something. Most recently, you helped Michael Alford in the men's basketball search. Tell us a little bit about that in the search business, because it's athletics, or what your, if you will, normal search process would be very similar. So talk us through that a little bit and what you brought to the table, so to speak, in that search.
Sure. It's an interesting thing when you have a chance to support your university in the area of expertise that you have. And as people around me would say, I've had this level of expertise since the beginning, which is judging people.
Right.
So in executive search, a lot of what we do is provide judgment. The talent we tend to talk to, whether it's a head men's basketball coach or a commissioner search, or a CEO of a major organization or a board member of a public company, these are all really incredibly gifted and accomplished individuals. And so you're sort of dissecting A pluses from A pluses in some capacity. And so being able to listen to your client, in this case it was FSU Athletics, and make sure we understood what Michael and the team and the broader university boosters are trying to achieve in the hire. But understanding culture is a huge part of what we do. Really trying to immerse with our clients and understand how are they thinking about their business, not where it is, but as we Canadians would say, skate to where the puck is going. So what are they trying to achieve in the go forward? There's a high level of complexity going on right now in the NCAA and the world of NIL, and a lot of this crosses over into the world of boosters, certainly the kind of coaches that you might consider hiring. And it's not just about hiring an easy choice. It's around really providing critical judgment, because sometimes people get enamored. There's very charismatic people in the world, and you can get enamored with them, and when they're overachievers, generally they're able to connect. But how do you decipher why somebody is going to be the right choice? I think myself and a couple of my colleagues, we were able to provide an outside-in view with enough of an inside perspective
Right.
To be helpful. If you're too inside, sometimes you can't see the forest from the trees. So it's just being able to ask the questions, whether it's of Doug Walker or Michael Alford or the candidates themselves, who are used to sometimes people just sort of bowing at their feet. And,
Right.
I'm not really interested in that. I want the best outcome for the university and for whoever our client may be.
Yeah, and I would say, I mean, obviously, congratulations on Coach Loucks being the candidate. But I think the thing that comes through there is a passion related to that from the Florida State perspective. But more importantly, you're going across the globe from a perspective of experience. So I think everybody can take great comfort in the fact that y'all really talk to a lot of candidates. And so I appreciate your efforts on that. One of the things I mentioned I've learned, I've watched you through LinkedIn from a business standpoint, you know, because at Seminole Boosters, we use LinkedIn a little bit. And we've got one of our staff members, Kyle Kashik in Jacksonville, he uses it extensively. And I want to get better in that area. But I watch you with LinkedIn and from a business community and a leadership perspective, where is your, from a marketing tool, do you enjoy LinkedIn and your connections?
I think what I enjoy is very similar to what you enjoyed, which is connecting with people.
Right.
And so, you know, using whatever the latest tools are around that is an important aspect. And, you know, I was lucky enough to sort of be born as a digital native, so to speak, or be on the front end of that, where the idea of emailing people, there are generations that thought that was taboo. People who would take notes in a meeting on their phones was considered taboo. The idea that you would take pictures of things on your phone and share it in ways, you know, this is now a social medium. Obviously, it's focused on professionals, but how do you also let yourself come through a little bit?
Right.
Who are you? What's the gist of the organization you're a part of?
Right.
You know, I think exploring all of those tools is important, but then pick the couple things that are really going to move the needle for you, for your constituents, whoever they may be, and then just triple down on it and learn from it. Like, you're a consummate learner, and I think figuring out what is the right frequency of touch. You know, there is so much data out there now that can show you what is effective and ineffective communication. Learn from it.
Right.
Like, just absorb as much as you can. And if you don't have the data, figure out how to get it.
Right.
It's just inexcusable in this day and age that people don't absorb and then apply it.
Yeah, back to being curious. So common theme that comes through. But knowing you, I'd say that's who you are. And I think the genuineness with which, because I can say this, whether I see you in any setting, you're the same, which I really appreciate. So let's fast forward a little bit. So you've been, obviously, from a business standpoint, very, very successful. You're in Tallahassee. Obviously, you've lived in New York. You've lived in other places. Your involvement back with Florida State, tell us a little bit from the boards that you've been on, and currently you're on the Seminole Boosters board, but talk through that a little bit in your involvement with Florida State.
Sure. My involvement on a board level actually started really early, and so this opportunity that young people get in these types of environments, I don't take lightly. There was a athletic director search back in 1993.
Wow.
When Sandy D'Alembert called, and I was the student athlete representative and probably one of the loud voices in there. I don't think we called ourselves quite a student athlete council, nor was there a president, but shockingly I was a voice that spoke up. And so Sandy had called former president of FSU to the house, and my roommate, who had a very thick accent from Tifton, Georgia, said, "Nada, Sandy's on the phone." And I distinctly remember, like, what are you talking about? Sandy who? And she's like, D'Alembert. And I'm like, "Lindy, that's the president of the university. What are you talking about?" So I get on the phone, and he had said they were going to do an AD search, and they wanted a student athlete perspective. And I thought, wow, this is unbelievable. I'd be thrilled. To join and listen and learn, and had an opportunity to meet some of the leaders across the country who were ADs sitting, or aspiring ADs across the country. I also got to eat in places across Tallahassee that I had never eaten at before, because I sort of confined myself to campus and training tables. So all of that was a plus, but Dave Hart, who was selected as the AD, became somebody who was very close. He and Pam were at my wedding. I'm still connected to parts of his family, but through that experience, just sort of opened up a perspective of decision making that was going on. And they invited me to join what was then called the athletic board. And as a student athlete, I joined that, and I sat next to Dave Coburn and Lawton Langford and Bill Smith, and luminaries across the Florida State sphere, which I had no idea. Diane Montgomery, who's subsequently been a university president in the state of California. There were just some really interesting people, and I absorbed all of it. I'm sure they were irritated with all my questions, but they took the time.
That's awesome.
And that mattered. So when I graduated, I'd been coaching for a couple years, and I joined the varsity club board, which was and still is part of Seminole Boosters. Just trying to figure out, like, how do you stay connected? How do you give back? It meant a lot to me and my family that the university had paid for my university. I wanted to be in a position one day to give it back, whether it was with, now I know time, talent, and treasure. Like, those were not words I knew when I was 21 or 22. So that was the beginning. I was then lucky enough to join the College of Business Board. Karen Beck Dudley was the dean at the time, and we were living out in the Bay Area. And I said, I'm happy to join, but we're going to have to do some meetings via conference call if you can make that happen. So we forced that behavior. I joined the Seminole Booster Board, which was interesting, going from having been an intern to be on the board. I recused myself from that board to help do the search for the CEO of Seminole Boosters, and you're sitting in the seat today, which I'm very pleased to say we got pretty right. And I think the College of Business, I've remained on that board throughout. So however I can try to give back, I do want to try to give back, but optimization and efficiency has a huge part to play in that, because to me it's, how do you give time to your family, how do you give time to your business, how do you give time to the things you care about, and the more optimized you are, the more you can do. But I've had a big buffet of experiences across FSU, both academically and athletically.
Well, that's awesome. Well, as you say that, I think back to a mentor I had and earlier in life that told me always look for the broadest set of experiences, and no matter what the title is, no matter what the salary, just get the most experience you can. And I think you exemplify that across the board. A couple more things I just want to ask you about is you mentioned it in there about your family. Tell me a little bit about your family, because Gary and y'all are very involved in Florida State sports, but also your entire family and the support and all that you do outside of Florida State, from youth sports and everything else. So tell us a little bit about your family.
So Gary Usina is my husband. His father actually attended Florida State University, passed away recently, but he was one of the first ever Seminole Boosters. So awesome. He sat around when the first football coach was hired, and actually helped create Seminole Boosters a million years ago. And so it had some appreciation of that connectivity. Gary went to University of Georgia. He actually went there because Hugh Durham is a very good family friend. And when Hugh moved over to be the head coach of Georgia, he took Gary with him. And so there's a bloodline here that connects. And I've got two boys now, 17 and 13. They've probably worn more garnet and gold in their life than anyone should. But, we want to create independent thinkers. My older child will be going back up north to university in the fall, and, excited about that for him. And my family's still in Toronto in Canada. And, it's been very interesting to be able to give my nieces and nephews guidance around a U.S. university experience. I've got a niece who's playing soccer for Serbia and the UEFA, U18s now, U17s now, and she'll be going to college up north as well at an Ivy League and playing up there. And, I told Penske he should get all over it. I think he was too late, but, I think having that family around you is important. My parents are still around, and, grew up, like I said, in a very competitive and disciplined and ambitious household. We had a lot of fun, but if you could win in the house, you could probably win on the street. And if you could win on the street, you could probably win in the neighborhood. And if you could win in the neighborhood, you could probably win in the city and win the country. I mean, that's how competitive this house was that I grew up in. All my siblings did sports at the highest level. And that was a huge part of that. My kids have continued to do that. My older one plays soccer competitively. They just won the Florida State title.
Congratulations.
In soccer, and he swims. He made states for swimming as well. He ran track and was supposed to be playing tennis this fall and tore his ACL. So he'll be recovering through that. And the younger one, who's just a little firecracker stud, and I know exactly what he's thinking because I think the same things. And he plays soccer and he plays lacrosse. He's picked up a little bit of Canadiana in him. Runs track and cross country, and all of that's good. But if they're not straight A students, I don't give a hot anything about it. So anyway, they're sports is a big part of it, and having a connectivity to seeing what elite athletics looks like and how you pair that with academics, even though the world is changing a lot in that aspect, is important.
Yeah, and I think it gets back to your kids obviously seeing the world, but also just experiences which matter. Growing up in Western North Carolina, what I was exposed to versus what you just described is totally different. But and back to your point, you're a lifelong learner, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, the last thing I just wanted to talk about is obviously we're sitting here, and you make it hear in the background some of the banging that's going on in the stadium as we do the transformation of Doak Campbell Stadium. From your perspective, being in school, being a student here, and everything else, what are your thoughts about the stadium project?
It's unbelievable to see how this has progressed over, I'll call it the decades since I first attended. I remember running stadiums up and down the rafters.
Right.
And I remember football players complaining at study hall how they would have to run stadiums. And, how many did you run? They said, we had to run 2. And I thought, wow, that's incredible. When we ran a stadium, we snaked the entire stadium up, down, 26 times was one stadium.
Yeah.
One stadium for football was up and down.
Yeah.
So we had a little different language, and we eventually figured out how to communicate. But it was a bit of a pain getting up and down through some of what were the erector sets that existed, and how this has been bowled in, and just the level of professionalism that's coming into the stadium now with the suites. And I giggle every football game because I used to do study hall literally in the suite that my family and I now have for football games. And I remember there being alcohol locked away in study hall, and now there are others who boosters partner with that make sure things are locked away. But it's unbelievable to see just the progress. And to be able to experience that and have my kids, they grew up in New York City, and so getting a chance to be in Tallahassee for these games and feel the electricity, whether you like the winning season. Certainly they've been lucky to see some of that, but to see what it's like to go through a losing season as well, and understand how to come back out of that. I think all of that's super important. But it's the facilities here are just really incredible. And anytime I brought my team down for our first corporate offsite for a game, and it was the FSU Miami football game.
Oh, wow.
Lots of stuff going on that week, and we got to go out to the pool and some other things. Saw some volleyball, but it was, they were like, is this what a normal weekend is like? And I said, yeah, it's exactly what every normal weekend is like here.
That's right.
So anyway,
That's awesome.
It's burned in their brain. They couldn't believe softball, soccer, all of it, beach, volleyball.
That's exactly right. Well, that's one of the things we talked about just from a Seminole Boosters perspective about support, and obviously we talk to student athletes, former student athletes, current student athletes, about just across the board support. So I just wanted to thank you for your time today. Thank you for what you've given to Florida State, to Seminole Boosters, not only in your treasure, but also in your time and your talent. It does make a difference. And any last words you want to share with anybody?
Well, first of all, I really appreciate just being invited here. I could talk about FSU all day, every day, and most people who know me know that.
Right.
I think, just being able to reflect a little bit on how I found ways to be involved. I think as people are at different stages and ages in their careers and lives, it's not all about treasure. It is about time. It is about talent. And I think, when I was younger, I tried to find those windows, and sometimes it's like an awkward teenager trying to find your place at a dance, and just take those windows, engage with Seminole Boosters. It's an unbelievable community that'll welcome
Right.
people at all stages and ages who are alums. So just give back.
Well, I appreciate it. Well, thanks for everything that you do, and good luck with
Yeah.
the new company and everything.
Thank
and as
you.
always, go Knowles.
Go Knowles.